Welcome back to Where in the World, where we have real conversations with young professionals about life and career, all while attempting to guess where in the world they are. We'll learn something new about our guests and what it's like to forge your own career path as a young professional. And when we say young, we're really talking about a state of mind. You'll learn by watching this web series that your career will take many dips and turns over time. And just when you think you've made it, you might have to scrap it all and start from scratch. Sometimes that's just the way it goes. We ride the tide. I'm your host, Clary Johnson, and I'm joined today by Patrick Thelen, who is a violinist, teacher, and performer living in Jacksonville, Florida. The big, hairy question we're asking today is how can young professionals find joy in their careers? But before we jump in, let's do some housekeeping. This is a mini web series game show. The questions will range from standard interview like questions to more personal questions about our guests' careers. You'll notice we're both here today with different backgrounds. In between questions, we'll each have an opportunity to guess where in the world the other person is. The first person to guess correctly wins. Our guests can ask for clues along the way, and our audience can help out as well by also asking for clues. So please join me in welcoming Patrick. Welcome to the show. Patrick,
Yeah, happy to be here, Clary.
yes. So you and I first met while studying strategic public relations at the University of Southern California.
That's
We were
right.
both pursuing our master's degrees at the time. And from there, our paths took us in very different directions. You went back to school, taught higher education, and now you are a musician. Before this interview, you talked a lot about finding joy and your happy place in your career. This is a topic that is very personal for me. I remember growing up with this idea that I could do and achieve anything I wanted to. Um, and at some point, I was faced with this reckoning. I was feeling really unfulfilled by my work. And I had this idea, I developed this belief that it's impossible to actually do work that you enjoy and also be paid well. I thought that if I were paid well, I probably wouldn't enjoy the work. And I figured if I enjoyed the work, probably wouldn't be getting paid well. Um, it wasn't until recently that this really changed for me, where I can honestly sit here and say today that I do work that I really enjoy and I'm paid well for. I can't wait to get your perspective on this. So let's get started with our most commonly asked interview question. Tell us a little bit about yourself and your background.
Sure. Yeah, I'm Patrick. My name's Patrick. I'm from Chile originally, the capital of Chile, which is called Santiago. Chile is a really small country. It's about population's about 19 million, but we all live in the capital. So the capital is a really big city. It's about I don't know 7, 8 million people living there. So kind of always born and raised in this kind of big city. That's what I was used to for a very long time in my life. Moved to the U.S. for the first time in 2012 when I met you. You were just a toddler back then. I was a bit older than you, and we got that master's degree in PR. I've kind of um, I think the topic for of today, which is kind of finding joy in what you do, kind of resonates a lot with me because I've always kind of jumped from career to career, never really settled in anything, and have made many transitions in my life, in kind of in the pursuit of happiness, joy. In terms of kind of my professional background, I've done a lot of different things. I started off I got a bachelor's degree in history, a master's degree in journalism. I worked as a journalist in Chile for some time, then decided to transition into public relations. That's when I got my master's degree in PR in Los Angeles at USC. Went back to Chile, worked as a communications consultant for several years, then decided to get a PhD in communications. Moved back to the US in 2016, got my PhD, finished in 2019. I went to the University of Florida, got my PhD there, and once I finished, I moved to San Diego in California. and started working as a PR communications professor at San Diego State University. I was doing that up until December of 2022. So stayed there for about 3.5 years. And I decided to just make a huge shift in my life and started to work as a musician. So went back to kind of my roots. I started playing the violin when I was 6 years old. I did the whole kind of formal training. I did conservatory when I was very young, which was 8 years. I did upper training as well. And when I was 18 years old, I kind of had to make this decision of what I was going to do with my life. Was I going to pursue music or was I going to do something else? And at that point in time, I decided I was going to do something else, left music for a long, 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 long time, and started doing music again as a hobby during COVID. COVID got me back to music, and what at first was just kind of a source to release stress. After some time, I found myself playing more and more and more and having a lot of fun doing it. And I decided to, you know what, life's about, you know, finding joy, and made the kind of brave decision to leave everything I had kind of created with my professional life and start from scratch and start as a musician here in Jacksonville, Florida, which I have been here for just over a year. Got here January of 2023. Yeah, so that's kind of a little bit of my summary.
Yeah, what resonates with me with that story is how often do we hear that going to school is the way to success. And then we go and we do that. And then somewhere down the line, we find out that the thing that we loved to do when we were kids, or the things that we were passionate about, or that we had grown accustomed to, we end up kind of finding our way back to that place. And it's almost just a matter of time. And the way that manifests itself is very different for so many of us. But one thing that I typically will say to young professionals is pay attention to the things that you enjoyed when you were young, and the things that maybe you even enjoy now, and maybe even there are things that you ran away from. And I know there's some part in your story about how you did music and then you kind of ran away from it a little bit and then you ran back, right? It might even be something, and for me that something is writing. I ran away from writing, but every now and then I get pulled back into some kind of opportunity that involves increasing my writing ability or practicing writing. And so over time, I've just learned to embrace it, but sometimes it can be kind of hard. And so I look forward to kind of diving more into this theme as we go. But before we go any further, it's time to guess where in the world you are. All right, so this is the part of our show where we guess where in the world our guest is, and the guest has an opportunity to guess where I am. I am going to describe what I'm saying today for our listeners, so folks who may not be watching. So it looks like, well, one, this is a very beautiful background. I have no idea where you are,
Uh-huh.
but it looks like something that is talked about in a history book. So I'm really looking forward to this history lesson. Um, it is a large building. It gives me like Michelangelo vibes with the sculptures in front. But if you can picture the White House, it's almost like a really old English version of the White House. That's how I would describe it. It's not white, quite white. It's kind of tan, marbly in color. There's this beautiful sunset happening in the back. You can't see the sun, but you can see like the golden rays reflecting off the top of this building. On the right and left side of this building, it looks like there are some colorful buildings. So I'm gonna go ahead and just guess that
Okay, wait, before you guess,
oh,
Claire,
okay.
let me just give you kind of one important aspect of it, which you didn't
Okay.
mention, which
Okay.
is kind of the water in the front,
Oh,
right?
yes, yes,
And
yes.
it's a fountain.
Yes. Well, yes. So there is water in the front, and it's not your typical ocean.
No.
It looks like a fountain, and the water is actually green. It's not, it's like a turquoise, a bright turquoise color.
Yeah.
Okay, so there is a fountain
Yeah.
in the front. I'm going to guess that we're not in the United States. I'm going to go ahead and say, Are we in Europe?
Yes.
Cool.
How
Cool.
many guesses do you get? Like, do you just
Until the end of the show.
no? But oh, so you only get one guess now, or do you keep on guessing until you get it wrong?
I get one guess now,
One
and
guess.
then I always ask for a clue.
Okay.
So I would love if you could clue about this place.
Okay. So yes, it is in Europe, and this it's really the fountain that we're focusing on.
Okay.
Okay. And this it was designed in the 1700s.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's an 18th century fountain.
An 18th century fountain.
Yeah.
So let me just clarify this. Now that I'm looking at the image again,
Yeah.
I can see that the fountain is separate from the building that is behind it. It
Yes.
almost blends in because of the
Yes.
colors, but okay, but I can see that. Got you.
Yeah.
Oh, I know what that fountain is. We actually have one here in Chicago. Maybe. Maybe. I'll save my guess for the next
Okay.
round. All right, it's your
Okay.
turn.
Okay. All right. So that I see ice, right? Am I correct in seeing ice?
Possibly.
It looks like some type of like ice cave.
Okay.
Is it an ice cave? I guess that's my question.
We are in a cavern. We are in a cave.
We are in a cave. It's not an ice cave.
It is not necessarily an ice cave. Is this an ice cave? No, it is not an ice cave.
So what's that in the
No,
top?
no,
Like is
it's
that like at the top? Like what's is that ice? No.
no, no, no. So what's hanging from the ceiling? And actually, I'm going to give this to you in the clue. Okay, can I
Okay.
give you the clue? Okay, cool. So, um, the largest body of water that exists within this cavern is called Dream Lake, and it's actually an optical illusion. The deepest point of this lake is between 18 to 20 inches, but looking at it, it seems much deeper. Um, it creates a mirror effect of the stalactites, stalactites. So I'm
Okay.
going to spell that Stalactites, stalactites, hanging from the ceiling, meeting the shallow water. So it's
Okay.
not ice, they are stalactites.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Uh, I get okay. So I have to let me see. Is this in like in cold weather? Like the location? Is it a cold place?
Um, hmm. It can't. Excuse me. It can be cold. Maybe during certain seasons,
Okay.
but I wouldn't call it a cold place.
Okay. Okay. I guess let me see. Is it in the Americas?
Yes, it is in the Americas.
Okay. All right. Um,
All right. Well, let's
okay.
move
So I
on
guess
to our
I
next
guess we'll go
question.
on to the next round. Okay. All right.
I see your wheels spinning. All right. Awesome.
Okay.
Next question. So you described your career path for us. Before this interview, you said, I didn't know what I wanted to do with my life. There were so many options and alternatives, so I followed what I enjoyed, and at that time, it was journalism. What did you mean by that?
Um, yeah. So I guess when we finish high school, I say we, I mean I, but I feel it happens a lot. A lot of young kids don't know what to do with their lives, right? And at that age, like the world is limitless. We have so many different options and routes we can take, and sometimes we're just confused and don't know what to do. Which was certainly my case. I when I finished high school, I could have taken like I don't know 4 or 5, 6 different paths in terms of career choices. There were different things I enjoyed. I didn't necessarily know which one I would enjoy more at the time. And since I had decided at the time not to take the music route, um, I was going to go to some type of university and had to study a career. And journalism was always something that attracted me. I like the part of just getting to know people, interviewing them, understanding their stories. That part was always attractive to me. Um, and also, kind of, journalism is a career that, even though we haven't practiced it or we don't know too much about it, everyone kind of has a general idea of what it means to be a journalist, right? Unlike other career paths, like even like PR, right? Like, you talk to people who are not in PR, like, what is PR? Like, nobody knows. It's confusing. Like, journalism is pretty straightforward. And I had a kind of general idea of what it would mean to be a journalist, and I liked it. And that's the path I decided to take when I kind of entered the university life. Yeah.
Yeah, so many of us, we go into school and we're not quite sure what that means for us. Um, and I know I remember being in school and having classmates who seemed really sure about what they wanted,
Yeah.
right? Like they were born politicians, right? But for me, it wasn't always so clear. And so I believe that giving yourself permission to try new things and to pivot is such an important part of the career journey, of your growth, of your development. And we actually talk about this in a previous episode about how to pivot. So thank you for sharing your story with us. All right. So I'm going to continue to guess where in the world you are.
Okay.
I feel like I'm cheating, but I'm just going to go ahead and say, are you at the Buckingham Fountain?
No.
All right. You got to give me another clue about this place.
um, Let me see. The name of the fountain uh, comes from a Latin word, which means intersection of three streets.
Oh,
Yeah. I'm not going to give you the word, because if I gave you the word, like, you'd
I
know
have the name of the fountain.
immediately. Yeah,
Okay.
pretty much. Yeah.
Okay, but that gives me an idea of where this fountain is located. It likely at the intersection of three streets. Maybe.
Yes. Yes.
Okay. All
Yes.
right,
It
well,
is.
it's your turn.
Okay. Um, is is uh is it located in the U.S.?
This is located in the United States of America, yes.
Is it located in Western Virginia? Did
We are in Virginia. Yes, we
I?
are.
Okay. Well, this is
But
the
no,
magic.
no, no, nope, nope,
No.
nope. You already got your guess. I'm gonna give you
Oh.
another clue about
Okay.
this
Okay.
place. Okay, so there, the largest musical instrument in the world is located within this cavern. Sound is evoked via stalactites being gently taped across being gently tapped across the 3 acres of the caverns.
Okay.
Okay. All right. So, next question.
All right.
Tell us about a time when you were in a role that you didn't enjoy and you decided to do something different. What was the situation? And what did you do to find joy? And what was the outcome?
Sure. All right. Well, I guess there's several moments in life, but maybe I'll just start with the beginning of my career. When because I mentioned previously, I got a BA in history, but then immediately I got my master's in journalism. It was kind of degree that you could, like, once you finished your BA, you immediately jumped into the MA program. I took like minor courses in journalism. Um, so I'm going to start off when I was working as a journalist. I was working at one of Chile's largest national newspapers, and I was in the international section of the newspaper. And um, I got into the international section because I always kind of I thought it was a bit related, to history. I enjoyed history. I enjoyed learning of the world, about the world, and working in an international section, like you learn about what's going on all over the place and cover it. And at first, I was kind of very excited about it, but then once I started, spending more time there, my role as a journalist in the international section wasn't what I would have wanted to do. It was more of me working pretty much as a translator, and covering stories that were written kind of in other places, like the US, for example, and kind of almost translating them and writing them in Spanish for people, just because international, like, newspapers don't have very much budget, and the budget is decreasing more and more. We all know that, right? And at the time, there wasn't any budget to send a journalist in the newspaper to, like, hey, yeah, you want to go cover, I don't know, the U.S. elections? Sure, like, we'll fly you there. That wasn't going to happen. So we had to just kind of see what was going on and kind of write stories about it. And like, if we interviewed someone, at most it was like, yeah, like a phone interview with someone, abroad or something like that. And I wasn't enjoying that too much. It wasn't what I would have enjoyed, what I would have found fun. It was helpful to the newspaper because I could speak English. There weren't too many English speakers there, so like for them it was great. But for me, it wasn't what I envisioned myself doing the rest of my life. So I quickly got kind of bored, and I guess you asked, what did you ask, like, what did you do to solve that? I left. um, that's how I solved it. Yeah, but for me, if you're not happy doing something, go try something else.
Yeah, I mean, how often do we get in this place where we feel stuck, like we got it, and and there's, I think there's this fear that we've invested so much time into this place, or so much of our energy, or so much of our creativity, in a role, and so we grow this really unhealthy, toxic attachment to something that we don't really even want anymore. And I say this too in terms of working in an environment where maybe you feel like it's a toxic environment. You're not getting along with your coworkers. You feel like your manager is out to get you, or your performance is under scrutiny because of your relationships. A lot of times that just means that you're in the wrong environment. You're on the wrong team. You're in the wrong role. And we have to get to this point where we detach our ego from our work, and from and our work from our self worth. Because when we are so attached and identified with the work that we're doing, with the role that we're in, it prevents us from moving forward. It prevents us from taking that healthy action, which might be to leave, which might be to get out, which might mean to do something differently. And so, what I'm hearing from you in your story, Patrick, is that you're giving yourself permission to follow what you enjoy, to do what you love, to really listen to your heart, so to speak. I know it sounds cliche, but like, to listen to, like, what's really underneath, what gets you going, what motivates you, and giving yourself permission to pursue that. And I think it sounds so simple, but it's something that can be really challenging for people, especially because we've been conditioned to stay in it, to eat everything that's on our plate, right? To finish our meal before we move on to the next thing. We've been conditioned since we were children to not stop, right? And while there is some value in, I believe in completing what you start, there's also value in knowing and acknowledging when it is in fact complete. So thank you for that. Okay. I have a feeling that you're going to guess where I'm at. So before you do, though,
Okay.
I'm going to guess.
Okay.
Are we in England?
No,
Oh, we are not in England.
we're not in England.
Oh, okay. This is going to be a little tricky. Give me another clue about this place.
Um, we're to the south of England.
Okay, that's helpful. I'll
Yeah.
take it. I'll take it.
How about southeast?
I'll take that.
Okay.
Okay, awesome. All right, so go ahead. Give me your best guess.
Um, are we in the Luray Caverns?
We are.
All right. Well, that's the magic of Google, Clary. You,
I made it too easy for you.
well, I guess. I guess.
So, tucked in Virginia's stellar Shenandoah Valley is the town of Luray, home to the Luray Caverns, which happen to be the largest caverns in the eastern United States. Um, as mentioned, this cavern actually hosts the Great Stalus Pipe organ, which is the largest musical instrument in the world. And it is made possible by actually tapping on the stalactites that are hanging from the cavern ceilings. This seems like a really cool cave. Many of the there are several rooms in this cave, some water formations that again are optical illusions. It was first founded or discovered in 1878, and yeah, it was created by a solution of calcium carbonate releasing some of its carbon dioxide, enabling a precipitation of lime to form.
Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right.
All right. Well, then I guess we're on to our next question.
Okay.
So, you've traveled quite a few paths. You began as a musician, or you began in music. You got interested in history, you changed to journalism, switched back and forth a little bit. You went into public relations, worked as a communication consultant, went back to school, got your PhD, taught higher education, and then returned to music. What would you say to a young professional who wants to follow their heart and find joy in their work, but maybe they're afraid of what the results will be or what people may say?
Yeah. Um, I'll just say follow your heart. Period. I can't say anything else because I truly believe in following your heart, and I believe in uh, not listening to what other people think, what other people say, what other people feel, what other people think is the right path for you because they don't know. They don't live your life. You live your life. You're the only one that knows what's right for you. Um, uh, so, like, never listen to what other people have to say about your life. It's your life. Obviously, there's certain people you're going to pay more attention to, right? You like your loved ones, and if your loved ones support you, it makes everything so much easier. But a lot of times we pay a lot of attention to the outside world, people that don't even know us, people that don't even care about us, people that might say a lot of things or might say something that might really hurt you, and maybe they didn't even mean anything by it, and they'll forget about it and forget about you 10 minutes later. But it made a huge impact in you, right? In the decision you made. So I just say kind of ignore, right? Just it's always good to kind of look at things, ask maybe questions, interest yourself in what others are doing. But at the end of the day, it's your decision, it's your life. I think I spent a lot of my life concerned about what other people think, and that made me make decisions that maybe I regretted later. So, I, I've always known it's important to kind of not pay attention to what others tell you, but it's a lot of times it's easier to say than to do. And I think for me, it was a long process, and until I reached that point in which, you know what, I don't care, and I really mean it, and I really feel it. But it took a lot of work to get to that place. I can take you back to kind of music, right? I'm doing music now, but I started doing music when I was, 6 years old. Um, and the reason, there were a couple of reasons why I didn't pursue music at the time when finished high school. One of them was that my wrist started to hurt a little bit, and I was afraid that, if it's hurting now, what might happen 10 years from now, 15 years from now, if I took the music route, didn't get a degree in anything, like what was I going to do if, later when I'm 30 or 40 or whatever, I can't do this anymore. Like, what will I do with my life? So that was kind of, there was this fear factor, right? And there was also the factor of caring what other people think, right? So when I was a kid, when I was, a young kid, there were two aspects in my life that I cared a lot about. One of them was sports, and the other one was music. And most of my friends were kind of in the sports world. And to my friends, the fact that I played the violin was kind of like the most loser thing in the world I could do, right? Um, and uh, uh, when you're 13, 14, 15 years old, what your friends say, unfortunately, matters a lot to you, right? So I never had this right environment in which, like, everyone around me, like in terms of like your friends, were like, yeah, man, that's so cool what you're doing. Like, you should definitely pursue that. It was more like, you play the violin? Like, why do you do that? And as much as kind of I wish it wasn't true, at the time, it did play a role in me thinking, you know what, like maybe this is something I don't want to keep on doing. And the only reason I didn't do it back then, or not the only reason, but one important reason, was being concerned about what others might think, about what you decide to do with your life. So um, I think that's the worst thing you can do. Like, care about what other people think. You should care about yourself, care about what makes you happy, what makes you grow as an individual. End of the story.
Thank you for sharing that, Patrick. That was so vulnerable. And there are a couple of things that came up for me as you were speaking. First thing is, my mom is one of my greatest supporters. I remember when I was leaving to go to graduate school, it was something I had always wanted to do. Always wanted to get my master's degree. She packed me up, put all my stuff on the truck, gave me some of her furniture, shipped it all the way out to California, to Los Angeles, where I was moving, and really gave me as much as she could from the distance. Right? She was my true supporter. When I left corporate America in 2019 and moved back home, I wasn't sure what I was going to do. I didn't have a job. Um, it was in the middle of the pandemic. Everyone was laying off. I was on unemployment, and I had to swallow my pride and call mom up and say, "Hey, the extra room you got? Like, can I crash there for a little bit?" And she said yes without hesitation. So having those kind of people on your side is a really important part of the journey. And I would also include that those are the folks that maybe you do want to listen to. I remember I felt I was very stubborn and hard headed. I'm like, I don't want to listen to I don't listen to nobody. I don't care what nobody says. And there are lots of times in my journey that I wish I would have reached out to mom and said, hey, like, what do you think about this? And there are a lot of times when I did reach out to mom and she offered a perspective that helped me make a good decision. And so I think what you're saying is absolutely right. It's about the voices that you're listening to and having the perception to know if they're helpful or harmful. The second thing that you said was a lot about looking forward into the future and a lot of your decision making coming because you were concerned or fearful about what the outcome would be 20 years down the line, right? 30 years down the line.
Yeah,
How often is
crazy.
that true for us,
Yeah.
where anxiety about the future holds us back from taking the right steps forward, or taking actionable steps forward, or taking positive steps forward that can help us move in the direction that we want to go. But that's okay as well, right? Why? Because guess what, Patrick? You had a detour. You learned a lot of new things along the way that I'm sure are helpful for you now as a musician. Um, and also gives you kind of a cushion, right? Like I know for me, being an entrepreneur, I'm glad that I went and got my master's degree. I'm glad that I worked in corporate America. Why? Because I that fear, I don't have that fear as much about what's going to happen if my business fails. Well, I can just go get another job. I've got the degree to help me do that, right? I have the work experience that's going to help me to get a new job if I need it. So there is something about laying a foundation for yourself that I think is also important. If security is something that you value in your life.
Yeah, I agree with everything you said, and yes, I think anxiety is a key word here, and what I would say to that is, yeah, when you know, when you're young, like you think of like, I need to make the right decision right now, right? Like if I don't make the right decision right now, like it's over, right? And you're like 19 years old, and you think like life is over when you're 22, right? It's crazy. And what I would say to that, to my younger self, is like, don't worry about the future. I mean, the future doesn't exist. There is no future, right? There simply is no future. That's all we have is today, right now, right? So if we start thinking about what's going to happen in the future, like where do you see yourself 5 years from now? Like that's BS. Like it's like, I don't know. I don't care. Like I'm here now, right? And right now I'm here talking to you, right? And that's what we are. That's all we have right now. And if we worry about what's going to happen, what's going to happen, what's going to happen, what's going to happen, you're never happy, right? You're always kind of concerned. You're never appreciating any moment, because every moment you live is to reach this other place. I'm doing this right now. I'm studying my ass off because I want to get that job. And now I got that job, and I'm working my ass off because I want to get a promotion. Now I got the promotion, and I'm working even harder because I want to, you know, fly first class. And now I fly first class, and now I want to have a private jet. And now I have a private jet, and I want to buy an island, right? I mean, you can live.
Let's get the island, Patrick.
I like that. I think that cave you have back there is my next. It's in my agenda. So you know, it's life can be like just exhausting like that. So if we just think about the now, it makes life so much easier.
Well said. And speaking of the now you have guessed where I am, but I still have no idea where you are. So you gave me a clue. You said we are southeast of England. Is that correct?
Yeah. You want me to give you another clue
Well, are we in France?
before you guess?
Oh, okay.
Uh no, not in France, but close to France. What, like, okay, I'll give, like, what if I say the word pizza? What country is that?
Oh, wait, guys,
Like
don't
when we
judge
think,
me.
like when
Don't
we
judge me. Pizza is
like when we think about
Italian, right?
yeah, yeah.
Okay. Oh, we're in
Okay.
Italy.
We're in Italy.
Thank you for that. Okay, I honestly, my next guess was going to be Belgium and the Netherlands. So
Okay.
thank you um, for that clue. So we're in Italy.
Yeah.
So we are at a fountain in Italy.
Yes.
Okay, well, all right. I'm just going to have to save my guess for the next one.
Okay.
All right, cool. So for a long time, I wasn't sure what kind of work got me excited or felt fulfilling, right? We talked a little about this. Can you tell us some practical steps that young professionals can take to tap into what they enjoy?
You mean like to find the job, like to find a job they enjoy, or to find something they enjoy in what they're currently doing?
Just to find what they enjoy. Anything, right? Like
Yeah.
I
Okay.
feel like when I wasn't sure what I liked to do, right? And maybe that's not true. I knew I loved reading.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed acting, but I also didn't pursue acting because of something someone told me about acting, someone that I really very close to me. Um and so as I was kind of progressing in my work, I wasn't sure how to kind of apply my skill set to something that I really enjoyed doing. And I think a big part of it is because I just didn't understand what the possibilities were.
Yeah.
And so what I'm really asking is like, how do we get back to what we just purely enjoy to do?
Yeah. Yeah. So I think, and I think this is particularly useful to kind of maybe someone who's getting started in their professional life. But always kind of look for things that are interesting to you in what you're currently doing, right? So, like if you're in a job, you're like, oh, maybe I don't love this. Okay, maybe you don't, but at least give it a chance, right? And maybe in what you're currently doing, there's some aspect of something that you enjoy doing, that you know you're good at doing, right? And you know maybe that other people there don't enjoy it or don't like it or are not good at it, right? If you can find that kind of spot, you're into, enjoying your job a lot more. And you're also probably going to get a lot more recognition in your job. I remember when I got started in doing consultancy work in Chile. I was working at it was a multinational firm. It's Hill and Knowlton Strategies. They had offices all over the place, and they were in Chile at the time. And when I was hired, I immediately saw that there was a kind of an opportunity to focus on public affairs. At the time, I was interested in politics, and I was kind of, it was something I knew a lot about, right, at the time. I have no interest in politics today, but back then I did. And I was, very informed about everything, and I knew what was happening. I read the newspaper every day about what was going on in that. There was an opportunity to focus on in kind of public affairs at the agency. So I immediately told, my supervisors, like, hey, this is something I enjoy. Like, if you want to give me that responsibility, I'll take it. And they did. And it was a great opportunity because no one else really liked that. They didn't enjoy it. The people that were working in the office, like a lot of them were more kind of like branding people, events people, and there wasn't really at the time there weren't too many people that were kind of interested in the public affairs side. And as I took that responsibility, I immediately had the opportunity to grow quickly, because they were giving me more and more responsibilities because the other people didn't want to take that, and I kind of took that shot and learned a lot along the way. So I think there's always a way in whatever job you have to find something that you enjoy doing and that maybe others don't enjoy so much. And there's an opportunity to kind of grow there. You should always take it, and always find something that you enjoy, right? Because if you take a minute to sit and ask yourself questions and be honest to yourself, you'll know what it is you like. And if once you kind of you've given the job that shot and you find and you're like, you know what, there's really nothing here that's of value to me anymore, and I need to go somewhere else because this place is just making me miserable. Well, okay, but give that place a shot before. Try to make it work, and if it doesn't work, it doesn't work, and that's fine. You still learn something. Whatever it is you're doing, you're always learning something. I like I said before, like, oh, I didn't take the music route when I was young. I could see that as a mistake, right? Like, oh, what a huge mistake I made in my life. I did a bunch of other stuff that didn't make me as happy as music, but I don't see it as a mistake. I learned so many other things doing all of the other things I did, that make me today a completely different person, than I would have been had I decided to be a musician at the age of 18. Right? I'm completely different today than I was, back then. And I look at things differently. I value things differently. And if I didn't take all of the different routes I took throughout my life, I would have never gotten to this place. So everything, you're always doing things for a reason, even if you don't know what the reason is. It's everything is a learning opportunity and a learning experience. That's kind of the way I see things.
Yeah. So what I hear you saying is try something new. Try it. And if you don't like it, try something else.
Sure.
I think there's something in that response too about acknowledging what you enjoy and also acknowledging what you don't enjoy and not forcing yourself to do the things that you don't enjoy. Try
Hmm.
it, but but if you find that it feels like it's really going against the grain, then maybe it's just not for you, and that's okay too. I think we put so much pressure on ourselves to be good at everything and to make everything our thing, but it's not, right?
Yeah.
And I think the people that I've worked with that are most successful are people who kind of find their lane, who find what they're good at, who find what they enjoy. And I've said this time and time again on the show, but they're really honest about that. And they say, this is what I'm good at, and here's what I'm not good at. And they lean on their peers to make up for maybe those I don't want to call them weaknesses, but to fill in the gaps, right? So they lean on the strengths of their peers, right? To take on those roles that maybe they don't really enjoy doing or they're not quite as strong at. Getting to that point where you can do that may take some time, right? When you're just getting started, when you're a contributor, you're kind of expected to try as much as possible. But there will come a time when you'll be able to sort and see really, really clearly where your strengths lie and really move in that direction. The other thing I'll say is I remember moments in my work or at my job where I would find myself getting really distracted in building websites or trading stocks and feeling like, oh my goodness, I'm wasting so much time when I should be being productive, but I'm really attracted to trading stocks and building websites. And now I can say that I trade stocks and build websites for a living, which is cool. Um, but at the time, it felt kind of naughty, right? It felt like, oh, I shouldn't be doing this, you know? And so I kept coming back to that. I didn't lose sight of that. I didn't lose track of that. And I was like, if this is something that I'm doing on my free time and I'm really enjoying it, maybe there's something here. And so really pay attention to the things that you really find joy in and don't judge yourself for that. Maybe it's not time right now, but don't lose track or lose sight of that passion that you have.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we are in Italy, and there
Yes.
it looks like there are at least 20 fountains in Italy. So good luck to me. Um,
Okay.
there's
Do you want another hint?
yes, yes.
Okay. It's in the capital of Italy.
Okay, so the capital of Italy, and
Starts with the letter
don't
R.
judge me, go.
Starts with the letter
Is
R.
is Rome.
Yeah.
Okay, so the capital of Italy is Rome, and so this fountain sits in Rome.
Yes.
Um, okay, so there are a few fountains in Rome. Are we at the Fontana di Quattro Fiumi?
No.
Okay. Well, one down.
One down. Yeah.
Okay, one down.
Yeah.
We have learned that it is not the Fountain di Quattro Frutti, and that
Hmm.
it's likely something else. So that's helpful. That's helpful. All right. Well, we're almost here near the end of our show, but we have a couple more questions. Can we hang in there for a little bit more?
Yeah, 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 for sure.
Cool. All right. So here's a statistic from the Pew Research. About half, 51%, of those ages 30 to 49 say they're extremely satisfied with their job, while around 44% of young workers ages 18 to 29 say they find their job enjoyable or fulfilling all or most of the time. What are your thoughts on that statistic?
Um, what are my thoughts? Well, uh, first, my first thought is I always take it all surveys with a grain of salt.
Of course.
I don't trust any survey. And as a as a PhD person, and researcher, I did a ton of surveys. Thing about surveys is that they don't mean anything if like people answering them like are responding them in 1 millisecond, right? And that happens all the time. I don't want to get into surveys in this interview, but like sometimes you make surveys and like you think like people are going to answer them in like 12 minutes, let's say, or 10 minutes, and like you'll see how many seconds it lasted and it's like 30 seconds, 40 seconds, right? And that happens a lot. So I don't trust surveys. And then the numbers surprise me a little bit. You said like half of people say they enjoy their jobs all the time.
Yeah, I was
That's like
surprised too.
major BS. That's not true. Like none of none of my friends, none of the people I talk to tell me that. It's like I have, I think it's about like 5%. Uh, so that's what I have to say about that survey.
I'm glad we're on the same page because I read it and I was like, I'm not sure I
No,
believe this
no.
statistic, but who knows? Maybe it's true.
What survey? Who'd you say the pollster
It
was?
was Pew
Pew.
Research. It's a
Okay,
reputable
they're
research.
good. Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Sometimes I pulled a statistic from, unknown sources in terms of their reputability, but Pew Research, they're
Yeah.
pretty reputable.
Well, sometimes people are like scared, right? Like, oh, what, like even if it's like like maybe they think like, oh, my boss might know, right? And like there's no way their boss will know, but they might think that, and they're like, oh, I love my job. Like, so it's hard. Yeah, doing surveys is hard.
Yes, yeah. Yeah, I'm not sure that how much I believe that. But if it's true, that means about 50% of people who go to work really, really love their work, and the other 50% probably don't love their work. Maybe they even hate
Yeah.
it. um, cool. All right. Well, I have an idea
Okay.
of where you might be. I'm going to
Okay.
stop beating around the bush. I'm just going to get to it.
Yeah.
Are you at the Fonta di Trevi?
Yes, you did it.
All right. Well, tell me about this place and why you chose it.
Okay. So I chose it not because the fountain means anything to me, but because my parents lived in Rome for a few years right before I was born. So like they left Rome a month before I was born. So like I was almost born in Rome.
Oh,
And it's always been interesting to me. I've always like thought like, oh, I'd like to go there. I've never gone to Rome. And it's been like something that's kind of on in my bucket list. It's something I want to do. I want to go to Italy and to Rome sometime soon. So that's kind of why the reasoning behind picking this kind of place in Rome.
yeah. I mean, I think that's a beautiful, very romantic story about almost being born in Rome.
Hmm.
Um, and I think it would also be really cool to visit Rome.
Yeah.
So it's when I think of the places on my bucket list, I think Asia is more at the top of my list of places like Japan or Nepal or Thailand. But if I think about Europe, definitely Rome would be high on the list in terms of places, in Rome and Amsterdam.
Hmm.
But yeah.
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
All right. Well, we have One more question. Well,
Okay.
two more questions, and
Yeah.
then almost done. What would you say to a young professional who's struggling to find work that they enjoy? To maybe they're in that 50%.
Okay. Give or take another 40%. Um, uh, I'd say, just be honest with yourself, right? Ask yourself, like, who am I, right? I think we don't spend enough time really digging deep into who we really are, right? A lot of time we're just kind of projecting what society expects us to be and what society expects us to say and what society expects us to do and what society tells us is important, right? We live. Oh, Clary, are you still there? There, you're
Yes,
there.
yes,
Okay,
yes.
okay. And what society tells us is important, right? So, like, the number one thing that society tells us is important is money, right? We live in a society where kind of money is God, and people aspire to get more and more and more and more and more money, and that's what moves people, and that's everything, right? And like we just assume that's normal, and that's kind of what we should aspire to. But why, right? Why do you need that money? Because you're going to get that fancy car, because you're going to get that fancy house. Like what do you need that for, right? And you think that's going to make you happy? Like, check suicide rates. Like, what are the countries with highest suicide rates in the world? They're the most developed countries, right? Like, you talked about Asia, right? Like, we look at Japan, China, the US as well. High suicide rates, right? And then you compare them with like poorer countries, like nowhere near as close. Like, I guess money isn't the route to happiness, right? Um, so I think obviously we aspire to be able to feed ourselves and have, be able to go to the doctor if we're sick and have all those basic necessities covered. Um, but once you reach a certain point, uh, it's like that's not what's going to make you happier. So find the things that make you happy and do that. Like, even like in the US, like people say like, oh, like, oh, I'm poor in the US, but yeah, like you might be like poor compared to other people in the US, but like you're still like, even the poorest people in the US, like bottom 15-20% of the US, like you're still in the top 1% of the world. Like, don't quote me on the statistics, but it's something like that. Right? So uh, I think the biggest thing I can say is try to take money out of your life. Try to find what makes you happy, what gives you joy. If you do that, you probably will find money as a result. But that shouldn't be the reasoning behind what you're doing, right? It has to be something that's fulfilling to you, something that makes you happy. Or at least something that's bearable for you, right? Because a lot of times people are like, well, I have this dream, but I can't do what my dream is, right? And that's true, right? Like, you have to be realistic, right? Like, oh, I love soccer, but I can't be a soccer player, right? Because I know I don't have the ability to be a professional soccer player, right? So sometimes we enjoy things a lot, but we know we can't do them, and obviously, right? But there's always something you can do that you enjoy, right? And then the other thing is kind of remember that you work to live, right? You don't live to work. And we live in a world where people are expecting you to work more and more and more and more and more, and it's just leading to higher unhappiness. So it kind of I'd say, kind of, if you can, try to stay away from like all of that information society bombards you with, right? Like, I look at kind of I feel super bad for like younger people these days because it's so hard for them. Because like when you're younger than I am, Clary, but when I was young, like when I went to school, like we didn't have like social media. We didn't have any of that. Like that stuff like can really push you in wrong directions and can really kind of hurt your mind, right, and lead you to believe things that you shouldn't be believing, right? And what I see when I like open TikTok or whatever is just kind of this emptiness in kind of beliefs and what's important. And the one thing I see all the time, repeat itself is just money, right? That's what we aspire to, money. That's the only thing of value, right? Like people talking about like, oh, like their dates or whatever, like what's the most important thing for you? Money. And it's become like the norm. It's like normal to say that, and like, yeah, of course it's money. That's the most important thing for me. And it's tough, and we live in a difficult society to live in. But I say kind of try to absorb, get out of all of these things that kind of are bombarding information into our minds and are kind of brainwashing us into believing things, right? Most of like history, like we didn't live in the type of society we live in today, right? Like for majority, hundreds of thousands of years, like humans were hunter gatherers, right? And like I've like I'd love to be a hunter gatherer, right? Like they lived the life. I mean, obviously they had their difficulties, but like they weren't working all day. They were like, we're hunting and gathering food, right? Whatever it is for, I don't know, 6, 8 hours a day. And then we come back and we talk to for our friends, our family, our social atmosphere around us, whatever tribe we're living in. And it's a different type of life, and money was not in it. And that was the great part of history, right? Like this part of history where like money is this big thing is just recent. So like, it's going to sound crazy, but like, why not live in a world where money isn't a thing? So I don't know. I mean, obviously we can't change the world we live in today, right? And we need money to survive. But I say like, understanding that, try to find the things that you enjoy, because if you don't, you'll just end up being miserable. So do make the right decisions for yourself, choose what's right for you, and whatever it is, kind of go for it.
Yeah, I mean, everything that you said was so spot on. And this is actually something I've been grappling with recently is how much money do I need to actually be content in my life, to feel fulfilled, right?
Mhm.
To feel happy. And I think it's true that we do need some form of income in order to sustain ourselves, to buy food, to put a roof over our head. But there comes a point where we have to really face and say, how much is enough? Right. And when we think about quality of life, what does quality of life mean to you? So for me, quality of life is being able to walk to the beach every day, is being able to take a break and step out and sit on the grass and get some work done or read a book. For me, it's being able to take a nap in the middle of the day if I want to, and not be anxious about having to wake up and do a ton of work. It's being able to sit here and have these really meaningful discussions and conversations and feel fulfilled and filled up after these talks and thinking in a new way. So think about what it means to curate a life that is fulfilling, that feels happy. What do those experiences look like? And separate that from the idea of how much things cost. And when we do that, we find the path towards real fulfillment. With that being said, we're here at the end of the show. We have one more question. This is a question that we ask everyone, Patrick, and I'm actually going to put you on the big screen to answer it.
Okay.
Um, what is success? The question is, how would you describe success?
Yeah. So for me, success is finding out who you truly are, understanding who you are, connecting with yourself, being honest with yourself about who you really are. And once you understand that, once you know what moves you, what interests you, then make that decision about this is what I want to do. This is the direction I'm going to take. If you find who you really are and you live according to those values, whatever those values may be, that's success to me. If you're living the life that you think you should live, that's success.
All right, well said. So, if we are living the life we want to live according to our values, that is success. And with that, guys, we are here at the end of our show. Thank you so much, Patrick, for coming on, for sharing your insights, your journey, your vulnerability today. I feel like I learned something, and I know our audience learned something as well. Before you go, tell us what's next for you in your career, and how can our listeners learn more about you and your work?
Yeah. So now I've I'm happier than I've ever been. Ever since I kind of decided to make this new journey into music. And what I'm doing now is just kind of finding different routes to perform. Right. So I play the acoustic violin, but I also play the electric violin, and most of my jobs involve the electric violin. And what I'm doing now is performing, at weddings, performing at corporate events, performing birthdays, performing at restaurants, all of that stuff. Anywhere where I can perform, that's what I'm currently doing. It's been super fun. And if you like music, if you like violin, electric violin, follow me on social media. So follow me on Instagram or TikTok. If I write something here on the chat, no, that's a private chat. So I
Yeah,
guess I
yeah.
can't.
No, if you put it in the comments, it'll show up.
Comments. Okay.
Hmm.
So yeah, so it's just Patrick, connect to comment. Connect your YouTube account to join. I can't.
Oh, okay. I can.
Okay.
Is
So it's just Patrick Thelen violin. Uh, on TikTok or on Instagram, I'm there. Patrick Thelen violin. And I kind of post videos regularly about just me playing different places, playing different songs, and just doing what I love. So yeah, if you like music, follow me.
all right. Well, thank you, Patrick, for joining us today. And with that, we are out.